Alright, sweet. So, product's relatively simple map. Most of it will be on concrete. We'll talk about cliff a little bit. It does help with certain teams, but not with all. And yeah, let's just get into it. So I'll talk about just pushes, the mid-fight holds, that sort of stuff. I'll do mid-fights first. You always want to go out over here, unless you're doing some sort of cliff mid. You have two ideas for walking concrete. Either you get whips from your soldier to go directly onto crates in order for you to fight there. Another idea is for you to go into connector like this in this spot. You'll see this being used for pushes and stuff like that, and this is one of those cases where it does see use. This is also faster than going into grass, surprisingly. Mostly because you're whipping, you walk a straight line instead of getting into a bend. You curve right around here. You're there before they are. You have a much more aggressive fights. The other idea, of course, pretty safe. This avoids sniper sight lines, gives you control of concrete, but doesn't do much else for fighting point. You mostly want to do this when the sniper is on cliff. Maybe you have a soldier bombing behind, maybe you have him playing on Highlander spot. You're watching out for spy, you can always back up to the head glitch. Either way, what I suggest you do, still make your way towards crates to fight. And you're going to see more often than not, people who do take the initiative for this fight on crates will win the mid-fight. Not only are you dividing attention, you're dealing good damage, and you're helping your team by just alleviating some amount of pressure on them. With that being said, there is another mid idea. You do this by walking over out by a cliff from the spawn, and you don't dilly-dally, you don't wait. You just go straight in, you call your team in, you would not jump off into pocket. You just want to jump straight off like this, taking a much more aggressive fight, and keep in mind the way that I'm walking on this as well. What spies like to do sometimes is hide behind the corner, so a good way for you to kind of avoid that is by playing dog bread, and because of the way that we're going to be describing a lot of these things, the spy might not be able to react in time to a lot of this. So you jump down, he has no time to move, you catch him because you can't move towards the left, you shoot him dead, then you start fighting again. And most of this entire push is very similar to Death Wall during the mid-fight on Nashville. You want to gauge how much you can peek forward, because you can peek deeper into their main the more you go in, but you're also more susceptible to people on cliff like another heavy or a soldier, maybe even a scout, maybe even a sniper if he wants to peek pocket. And if he knows you're there, he might kill you, that sort of stuff. Just be careful with that. Especially if you know a demo's in pocket as well. Closer you are, more damage the stickies do, because they have less time to... actually, no, sorry, my bad. They don't do more damage. They just have a quicker time to deploy. So you end up taking more damage in the long run. Because he's putting more damage onto you than if you were playing farther back. With that being said, that's pretty much it for the mid-fights. There is an idea for you to play Rock. With Rock, you can also go over to crates or dog bread. Just kind of hovering over by this side, trying to make things work. But what I found to be the most successful, pushing into main, fighting concrete if there's nobody there, or pushing crates if you know that there's going to be a fight. More often than not, if you see other people going into connector, you either have to turn back, fight them with your team, because that is a job you have to do, or you stick the fight, you have people watching behind, you keep looking forward, they look behind for you. Any questions so far?
When we walk up to crates and let's say that their combo is coming main and their like flank is coming con, who should you focus in that scenario?
Depends on where you walk from. If you're walking main going into crates, more often than not you're dealing damage to the combo first. If they do walk main, they tend to be a little bit slower, but you're also playing heavy, but you also have whips, so it evens out. Either way, they're meeting you, they have more cover behind Rock. This is kind of a little bit of a... this is kind of an equal position in my eyes, because your demo can go on the opposite side, he can walk the same side as you, which I don't like, but happens sometimes. The major threat is flank. That's the wild card. And unfortunately, going straight into main like this, going on to crates. Crates is the win condition, right? Let's get that straight up. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that main is always the way to go, because of that threat of sniper on cliff. But crates, you want to get there as soon as possible. And if you're planning on fighting people, you would want to secure that by going over to crates, or going over by concrete, trying to walk in, fight them, however be. If you notice that their sniper tends to go cliff, you're not so much focusing crates as much as you are focusing pressure, watching out for spy, maybe the soldier bombs gives you a distraction for you to walk into connector, but you don't want to walk in there willy-nilly unless A, they are going to lose that fight, or B, there's nobody there to contest you and you want to go for a play. Now notice what I say over here, alright? This is a great win condition. This is a play. Let's differentiate the two real fast, because you can hold here, but this is more of a play for you to get into their concrete, or for you to hide, so you can then go back onto crates, or play your side of concrete, or to leave. It's a play, not a hold, alright? It's a play, not a win condition. Concrete is their win condition. Or not their win condition, but you get what I mean. Like, you can make their concrete your win condition, if you're able to get over here. Likewise, dog bread. If you're putting yourself on dog bread, people are not contesting you, be mindful of it, but you're also in a spot where you are winning. This is another win condition. If people play around you, you provide them adequate support, usually the mid-fight goes in your favor. But there's so many factors at play. The biggest one are the flank, sniper, and spy. And walking into flank like this is just the way to deal with that, by allowing you control as to when you're walking up, because at least you have this angle that you can go from. He's called that he's dropped down, or maybe your soldier bombs him. At that point, that's when you start going crates, assuming that this fight on the flank is winning for you, or evens. And remember, you always have this head glitch to back up to in case they start walking into you. This is also a good time when spies like to really decloak on you. So when you're playing this forward position, be mindful of the spots where you could be stabbed from. Highlander spot, flank, on both corners, and crate. These ones. This is crate, but this is kind of like concrete itself, just playing on the crate on concrete. I forgot what it was called, but you get what I mean. Closer towards window. So if you want to tell people Heavy's playing by window, that's also fine. Just be mindful that when people say window, sometimes they mean this. If a sniper's playing on your window, you need to call that. If a heavy's playing on your window, you need to call that. But I like calling it window just because it gets people's attention. They know people are there. You're able to stop the fight with your flank, regroup, reheal. That heavy's either pushed down into you, either standing over there, or is leaving. So that's besides the point, though. Like I said, mid-fight, mostly about these win conditions. They're concrete, crates, and dog bread. But it's also about objective time. So whenever you get the chance to, you win the fight, get your ass on the point. It helps out a lot. Alright? Moreover, just be objectively minded with every single push and hold. Mostly because you want to aim for getting as much cap time as possible. This gives your team much more control over when they can cap, over the fact that they can cap at all, because sometimes that's not always a guarantee. And it just allows much more space to be made. It forces mistakes. So we're going to be talking about proactive play and reactive play. Point time is one of those things that if you're doing it right, it's proactive. You're forcing them to make a mistake by running into you, forcing an Uber, which you can then kite. It's going to be good. But just be aware that it is the ultimate place for you to be at.
A question.
What's up?
So you talked about rolling out main and then getting on crates to being the win condition looking forward. And you had said that if someone from our team could be watching our back, looking behind us, I guess, what would be some examples of good players to take on that role?
Usually it's going to be your soldier. Unless he's bombing behind, in which case you're going to need to play it a little bit more passive. Or you're going to need to do it with the thought that at any moment in time, you might need to turn around for the flank. You're going to have to play it either on your own or with people. So sometimes the soldier bombs, you see him bomb. If there's no sniper on cliff, maybe he's on China, porch, pocket, maybe even in main. You can fuck off from the angle, fight this, but again, make sure that you're watching out for the spy spots. Now with this being a thing, this being a thing, and of course connector and this angle as well. And also this corner, because then you could just be stabbed when he walks up. It's a very tricky place to play, but for the mid-fight, you're kind of forced to play over here, so I want to teach people what to expect. Because more often than not, the thing that wins or loses you guys the push is a sniper being on cliff or not being on cliff. If he's not on cliff, you and your soldier can then piece together some sort of aggression with your team much more handily. But if he is, you're forced to play passive, and until he's dealt with, you're not going to be able to make much space. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Alright, cool. I want you to keep in mind all of these ideas, because these not only work with the mid-fight, but work with pushes as well. But they are done a little bit differently, so I'm going to talk more about the setup for the pushes, and then we're going to go into familiar territory. When you lose the fight, lose the mid-fight, lose any sort of fight, lose any hold, you're always going to want to be by house. You're always going to want to get a buff in house, 450, so you're not peeking a sightline, you're not playing by the door. As much as you can get a buff over here, and this is the best place for you to get a buff that's not behind house, it's still susceptible to people walking up in grass and kind of just dealing with you. Like this. And you're not really, you're kind of forced to back up into an angle you don't want to. Maybe Fist of Steel leaving this way, but you eat a lot of damage. It's not good. If people are aggressive, this is one of the worst places to stand. This is the absolute worst place to stand, because then they could just walk into you with pressure and you're not going to be able to deal with it. And this is why this wall, in general, is not really that great to push from. If you're able to get the space, that's one thing, right? You'll see me do this all the time in a lot of the games that I play, because I know that there's nobody on our side concrete. But if there is, I'm not peeking this angle wide. I'm not peeking this angle close, I'm peeking it wide. Mostly because I want to be aware of who's by connector, and who's by point, and who's by our concrete. If one person sits over here, for example, like let's just say the spy is playing in the corner, runs away, I know for a fact that he's trying to bait me in or he's trying to get information. So I take my time, I'm slow with it. If people are there, I can back up and run all the way over to here, where I could then just, you know, eat a sandwich, get back up. I'm just managing the flank. And if they run in, then I'm fighting them immediately. And this is all part of setup, because sometimes the teams will try to run into you. And at other times, for example, let's just say you kite to house, and they start forward holding. Then you could be really weird, and when your team is ready to push, that's when you go ahead and try to fight them on your house, while they're on your concrete, or on your grass, or your main, for example. It's just one of those nice things that you can do if you end up in the situation, and I just wanted to let you guys know about it. But only if you kite here, and only if they forward hold. Most of the time, they won't do either, at least in the divs that you're playing. That's not to say actively go behind house when you're trying to kite out. If people see you, this play does not work. So, more often than not, it's kind of a circumstantial thing. If you're there, you're there. If you're not, this is where you're going to congregate most of the time. Speaking of dealing with the forward hold, this angle is the only place that you can really push it from, and you push it with a 450 buff and a soldier. Sometimes your team is going to be here as well, but most of the time it's going to just be you and your soldier, Your team walks a different angle. You make sure that this room is completely cleared out, hoping that the corners are free, and then trying to take a fight. Will you live in this fight? Not always, but it is important for you to peek when your team is ready to peek. So, what does that mean? What does it look like? Your soldier and you get 450, 300 respectively. Let's just say your combo goes main. They take an Uber exchange, you don't need to do anything. Once that Uber is faded, then you're going to check to see if there's any comms on where they're leaving from. If they're not leaving, be wary. Look towards this crate, or if the heavy's playing over here, you need to be mindful of that, because you're going to be looking this angle. Sometimes what heavies do is when they're playing the forward hold, they actually drop down here because of that expectation that the heavy's going to be by crates. So please be wary of that. Alright? But if they're not forward holding, then maybe they're holding their your concrete. Playing over here is not too bad. Playing it wide is the key. Don't play it close, because then you could easily die. If there's no people in concrete, this is going to be your corner. And this is just really used to head glitch, peek over by connector, look at the people on point. If the sniper's on cliff, that's when you can go ahead and play this spot now. And yeah, it's just a really nice place to kite to when you're holding the point. Maybe an Uber goes off and you're just hiding over here. Or, let's just say that your team is not ready to push. This is just a place for you to sit at when you know that they're not walking forward into you. So you can just sit here for a little. It's non-committal. Pretty much. And that's its biggest advantage, because if you're playing very committal, there's little to no room for you to make a mistake. Either you're in and you win, or you're in and you lose. With this, at least it's going to be guaranteed something in your favor. Because if people walk at you grass, then you could just leave with Fist of Steel into the corner and fight it from here. Any questions about it so far? No? Alright, cool. Another thing. To deal with the concrete players, sometimes you don't want to peek it wide because they have so many people. This is also a good spot for you to deal with that. It allows you to peek into concrete, peek into crates, maybe peek a little bit into point. But more importantly, people walk in, you're immediately stopping them, and it has the added benefit of if people walk house, you're catching them out. And if people bomb your cliff, you're catching it out, but you're also protecting your sniper. Maybe your sniper's playing by China. Maybe instead of peeking over here and just playing this door, you could be on him for a little bit, get a buff from the medic who's also behind house, and when you drop down, do it straight like that. Alright? I want you to notice that too, because it's a little bit weird. Let me do that again. Don't jump. Don't go this way. You take fall damage. The way to do it, get a buff, Fist of Steel, and you walk like that. Any questions? Alright, cool. Another thing that you should be looking for when you're walking out of these angles, especially around this area right here. Sniper is going to be on window, flank is going to be peeking your concrete and your grass. People are going to be walking into your house, people are bombing in your cliff, and of course the corners where the spy can decloak. It's also important for you to recognize that you are bomb denial. If they know that you guys have ad, they can send an entire troop of people to try and kill your med. If he's not running away, if he's sitting behind house or sitting close by you, waiting to escape and leave, you're dealing with the bombers and the spy. Alright, don't do it close, don't sit here. This allows and invites that bomb to get at least one rocket off. And usually it's 2. Which is enough to kill your med, and if you kill him in that time, there's no guarantee that your med lives. Alright, with that out of the way, let's talk about the angles where you can push from. If your team is fighting on point, maybe let's just say you respawn, there's a couple of niche situations where you could put yourself in. But all of these ignore concrete, and a lot of the play that I'm going to be talking about does not ignore concrete. In fact, it's the main way that you're going to be playing it. So, I want you to just keep it in mind. Don't go to these spots if concrete is being pressured. Or if you know that people on the other team are going to pressure your concrete if it's called that you're fighting valley or cliff, for example. But one idea is for you to go inside of house, walk on porch, and this is when you can go ahead and try to play a little bit of rock. Maybe playing on your rock for a little bit, or you go dog bread, or you start edging the cat. It's one of the quickest ways for you to get some sort of immediate value. If you need a kite, you go pocket. That's not to say that it's always the best plan. If you're forced to prolong the fight, this spot becomes increasingly worse and worse. This allows more time for people on flank to start dealing with you and your combo, and that's bad. Somebody needs to deal with that. Another big thing, when you're fighting this, you want to go in as quickly as possible. You're getting a buff, you're supporting your team. This is great if your team is already winning the fight and you want to get some cap time. You want to help out. What if they re-push? Well, you're already in, you can leave as well. You can see it all happen. You have vision. You have info. There's a lot of things going for you that this spot allows that not many other spots allow for. A lot of concrete is going to be based off of the comms that your team is giving you, off of the limited vision that you have playing this spot. At least when you're walking valley, you can see most of the map. I want you to be aware of that, alright? It's not always going to be the best thing, but it's important, because vision and any sort of info that you can get is great. If you're able to play up here the entire time, great. It also allows for you to protect concrete. It allows you to time a push with your team, time a push when you see that their Uber's faded. If that, always assume it's going to be 6 to 8 seconds. But maybe you can hide over here for a little bit. If they start walking at you, you can back up. And I want this to be with every single Uber. Most of the time, because combo is going to be Ubered, you can't do damage to the combo. The Uber is going to focus onto another place. Usually that place is flank. If you make yourself a target and you die before the push is really over, you end up making it very hard for your team to win, if not impossible. So when you're playing this spot, when you're ready to push or you're ready to hold, play your life. As weird as it sounds, and I don't like saying this, but play selfishly. Especially when it's 80 to 100% Uber. Because if you're playing up here, and they take an Uber into you, there's no guarantee that your B-hops and Fist of Steel jumps all the way over to a medium-sized health pack is going to make you live. Or even just sitting by this corner is a death trap if people know you're sitting there. Which is why you should use this sparingly. Or, when your team is ready to push, you use it knowing that they're not going to walk in. If you know that this team is aggressive on concrete, you get out of concrete. You hold the passive angle. You allow yourself more room for you to deal with that. But I digress. Ultimately, what a push should look like is very similar to anything that we've seen before. You're walking up, taking things a little bit slower than you would the mid-fight, unless you have a win condition, which it may be announced, maybe not. Maybe they're all dead, but nobody's telling you. At that point, you go into point. Simple stuff. Maybe you see that their demo or sniper is dead, in which case, cool. I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive, but mindful of concrete because I don't have vision inside of connector. Not all the time, anyway. So maybe I Fist of Steel, check. Do something like this. Just one of those examples of just looking at the top of your screen, seeing who's alive, who's dead. But more importantly, who on your team is fighting? Who's playing with you? Who's pushing on the point? If you see people walking on the point, you might have timed it a little bit late. You baited them a little bit, but it's still fine as long as you're able to get to crates and they don't die. But I want you to be wary of that. If you see them fighting on point, imagine yourself there and put yourself in that spot. Also, imagine what the other heavy and the other soldier are thinking when everything like this is going down. What if you see their combo pushing the point? What do you do then? Sometimes there's not much you can do. Other times they're running away, and that's when you and your combo give chase, so you can fight crates and make this a win condition. But all of this comes at a cost, not being prepared for immediate threats. I talked about the sniper on cliff, I've talked about spy, I've talked about combo running into you. What I've not talked about is flank walking into you, and that's an important aspect that we need to discuss. When pushing, when holding. Especially when you're an aggressive heavy, like taking crates, people will take note, and people will try to play off of that. One way they do that is just by being aggressive in connector themselves. Let's just say your sniper's not doing his job. What if he's dead? What does this allow for for their heavy to do? It might allow him to push point, but it also might allow him to just sit back and play this spot. This is an especially good spot if the sniper's dead, because you can't really get injured when you're playing here. The only people who can are the people walking on point, and if it's called, he can just play like this and be an absolute anchor for his team to play around. That's not to say aim for the same thing. Every single situation has its best play. But I want you to just keep note of that. That sometimes they're allowed positions that they otherwise wouldn't normally be allowed to play because of people on your team making mistakes or forcibly making mistakes because of other things out of their control. Or they just lost. Sometimes that just happens. Like, sniper v sniper is really, really hit or miss. So if your sniper ends up losing that SVS, now this heavy's allowed to play aggressive. That is a sign for you to take that opportunity as well. That's what we talked about before initially, especially when the demo and sniper are dead. That's when you can go ahead, play up at this spot, not worry about peeking over here. You're being very much more aggressive. Your team is more aggressive by proxy because the demo or sniper is dead, and you win the fight. But I want you to just be aware of these things. What to look for, and importantly, what you should be expecting the other people to do. Another thing that is going to be expected, but it's not really that apparent. Maybe they know counterplay to it. Which sounds really weird, but let me just put you into a perspective. The sniper or the demo is dead. Let's just say the sniper for simplicity. The demo's behind rock, you want to be really aggressive, and then oops, the heavy's playing this corner. Or oops, the soldier's playing on Highlander spot, spamming rockets into you. You can no longer play this spot. What they did right there is counterplay. Sometimes it pains to go fast. Sometimes you need to take things a little bit slower. Not allow them the same exact things. If that soldier's playing Highlander spot, this is the maximum range that any of his rockets can go. If the heavy's playing passive, boom. Now you can match that, mirror that, or quickly go to the other side with him not being prepared. But you're also doing it wider, you have more information, so you can make that split-second adjustment and take the fight and make it yours. You can peek over here if the heavy's going over here. If not, you hear him, you hear the footsteps, you hear people, call for help, maybe you can play behind crates. If not, you can just walk back in and notice where you end up sitting. This is why this is an important spot for you to learn. It's not the spot that you want to go to all the time. But it allows for a lot of things if people are not controlling your space. So if the sniper's not on cliff, or if he's dead, this spot gains value. But if that sniper's alive and then goes on to cliff, your immediate value is going to get tanked if you're not prepared. And if there's a soldier or a heavy just spamming you, because unironically, it's worse for you to get spammed over here than it is for you to spam them. If they try walking at you, that's one thing, and then you could easily deal with that. But they don't need to commit their body to see you. They just need to commit their head, and it's a lot better for them to peek their head than it is for you to peek half your body. A similar idea with this wall, but this allows you to hide, and if they're walking in, you see that, you're able to make that split-second decision of being able to push connector, or mirroring that and pushing crates. Usually crates is going to be much more beneficial for points, but like I said, on concrete, you're incentivized to play a little bit selfish. So you can try walking connector. And again, some people will see that, so counterplay is involved. They know that maybe you're playing over here. They see you in the cross. So maybe they feint going over here, shoot a little bit, and then fight you instead. Or you're peeking over here, they're fighting you, so now you're unprepared, and you're looking behind when your team needs to be looking forward. I want to highlight the complexity of a lot of this stuff, because it is very important for you to understand what other people can do to you, as much as you're able to do to them. What you want to do is not always in line with what you're allowed to do. But you can force that, if you could, with other people, with better play, with buffs, with heals, with a lot of outside factors, which is what I'm going to be calling a lot of this, alright? What does this mean? It means you need to have the flexibility to be snappy at a moment's notice, while also being passive if need be. The demo's dead, but there's no guarantee that the sniper is going to be anywhere other than cliff. If that is the case, maybe there's no call on where the sniper is. Maybe you wait for that sniper call before you get that confidence to peek up with your team. And even if it means losing out on a little bit of time, that guaranteeance is much more important than any sort of quick, decisive play can really be. Sure, you might be able to play aggressive, and if it ends up working out, it ends up working out, and it's the best solution. But sometimes that comes at a cost of you not recognizing why that works the way it works. People were not prepared for you, and you took advantage of that immediately. What if people were prepared for you? That's where you need to play a little bit more controlled, a little bit more disciplined. And I'm talking about this like it's only about the pushes. It really is only... It is both the pushes and the holds. And that's why I'm going to be talking mostly about this map, due to the position that you're playing in rather than the actual play itself. There are aggressive and defensive plays that you can take and do whatever with. But I want you to recognize what this fight is really about. It's not about you pushing. It's not about you holding. It's about managing the space that you have while also using the push or using the hold to your advantage. If you're pushing, they're going to have to run away. They're playing more committed on your side. If you're able to force them out, they have less health. You can then force attention by getting objective time, or they're forced to leave, which allows you the objective unharmed. If they start playing a little bit back, sure, it might be a little bit harder, but now you're playing aggressive and they're playing passive, so you end up getting more space. But remember, more space, more aggression, more commitment means that if they catch you out, you're going to have to run a longer distance, which means by average you're going to take more damage, if not die, and you're going to be much less valuable during a fight. In fact, this sense of value is why I'm telling you to play selfish, because if you're playing with yourself in mind, you're going to provide your team much more value than if you were always in with them. And that sounds really weird. And I just learned about it today, and I'm kind of wrapping my head around it as we speak. Because I'm not used to it. I'm used to playing with my team and being some kind of anchor. But sometimes the ship doesn't need to sink, you know? Sometimes you can take it a little bit slower. Your priority is this flank. It's only 20 to 30% of the map, but it's your 20% or 30% of the map. Other than sniper, that's a really big thing to have. And if you're playing with people, which is what I want you to do with all the time, if you can, this makes any sort of push that you guys make that much better. Because now you have somebody looking at this angle when you're focusing on playing aggressive. Now if you need to look back, this becomes less of a threat because you're able to deal with it quicker. If you have a spy on the other side, boom, you distract the heavy, maybe he's walking up, you kite a little bit, maybe you're looking a bit forward, staying, knowing that that spy is going to stab. And then he just gets the stab off. And then you take less damage overall, and you're able to eat by this corner, in which case you'd go on top, eat like this, so you can look at all sides. And then you can make that split-second decision, and then just play how you want to play. In fact, one thing I do want to say about Concrete in particular is one thing that I want you to try out. Two things, actually. But we're going to talk about the simplest one first, and then the other part second. We talked about Concrete on their side being a win condition for you, right? Now, normally, a heavy protecting this area, a soldier protecting this area, it's gonna be impossible for you to push through it. They have too many things looking at you. Now, if it's one person, that's one thing, because then you and your soldier can work together to focus that pick, and then boom, now you made this your win condition. Right? But let's pretend for a second. What if you, A, already have the space, B, are able to hide yourself, and C, become less apparent for the other team? For this reason and many others, this is why I think Tomislav is the way to go when playing this map. If you're playing minigun, sure, it works. If you're playing aggressive, it gives you much more consistent damage from medium to close range, and a lot of these fights end up being in that close range. However, if people notice your minigun noise, which admittedly some people don't, but if people notice your noise, they're going to react to you. So Tomislav, in this respect, allows you to play these spots without people knowing that you're playing them. I want you to keep this in mind, because there are some spots that you can go to, you can hide in, and try to take a fight. Let's just say, for example, that they're all playing behind rock, but you have concrete space and nobody's looking for you. You can make this your corner. And if nobody's walking forward, maybe they're all getting heals, maybe you guys just lost a push, and you're able to sit in this corner. What if you then ask your team, like a spy or a soldier, like, hey, can we bomb their medic? I'm in concrete ready to push. Your team gets the go-ahead. You initiate the push, maybe by going crates, or going through their connector. And then instead of you feeding, you actually become the initiator because everybody's looking at you. And then your soldier bombs in, maybe he's bombing in from concrete. Meanwhile, you're still walking in from concrete. And maybe the spy's able to drop down and stab people. And not even in this corner. Sometimes you can just hide in here. Which seems really weird, but this is the angle that I'm talking about, where you really want to make sure that nobody's watching you in. Because I want somebody to sit there for a second, just so I can show the video. Just sit in this corner right here. I'm going to pretend that I'm on blue. Now, let's just say, yeah, be revved and be ready to shoot me when I peek again. You're going to have to go off of instinct, which is what a lot of things... It's fine. Right? Let's just pretend their sniper's dead. I'm ready to walk point. Now I have to deal with this. He's able to walk forward, and I can't do anything. I'm not revved. He's revved. He wins that fight 9 times out of 10. That's what you can do to the other team. And even still, maybe nobody goes concrete, right? Then you can initiate a same idea with your flank, with your soldier and spy. You can also do it with your combo. Like, hey, I'm in connector ready to fight. You give your team the go-ahead. You actually see them on your side of the connector. And as long as you're maintaining space and nobody's calling you out, it's great. But notice that I said if people are not calling you out. There's a reason why I talked about this corner first and not this corner second. Or not this corner first, sorry. It's because if you're caught out in this position, there's very little room for you to run. There's that, but that's not always a guarantee. Most of the time, you're dying around here, if not inside a connector itself. What do you do by then? There's not much that you can do. And this is where it becomes a little bit of a gamble. And this is where I want you guys to recognize that this is playing weird. And I want you guys to recognize the fact that it always has a chance to fail. It is never guaranteed. If I'm playing in this spot, it takes one spy to notice that there's a heavy in connector for them to just start a push into me, and then I'm dead. And I don't even realize. It takes one push into me through concrete, in which case, sure, I might be able to play a little bit on the wall. But if I'm playing on the wall, people know I'm here now, so now I need to back up and I get nothing. So it ends up not working in my favor anyway. It's the smart play to do, because I'm given no other option. But it's just one that sucks. I don't want you playing like this all the time. Matter of fact, I don't want you doing this more than 3 times during the match. The connector play you could do as many times, I just want you to recognize that there are many risks to it. If people know you're playing this spot, not just a spy, but maybe let's just say the heavy knows that your tendency is to play over there, he can peek you first, start shooting first, and then this fight becomes a little bit more even. I say a little bit more even because you still have the pack and connector, but this guy also has the head glitch. So maybe he forces you to take the pack, and then he forces himself out. And now you're stuck over here, he knows you're over there, he's calling for his team to push into you, and you took your only available health option. Besides running into running into grass and taking your pack. He can play he could play very non-committal. You are still in a committal spot. Alright? And even still, this spot isn't safe either. Let's just say the spy calls you out. Sure, he can go behind, get ready for a stab, people walk into you concrete. That's a play that you can prepare for. If you know that this spy has seen you, if you know, like, let's just say he takes the ammo pack, and you notice that, right? If you see no ammo pack, back up immediately, and then spy check, because he might be there. If not, then it's just a safe play. And a little bit of paranoia doesn't hurt as long as you're not dead. But let's just say this. What if instead of trying to kill you like that, I'm just gonna go spy. I want to just show you guys the jump. What if instead of all of that, let's just say I'm decloaked, right? I'm walking around, checking. Oh, there's a ripe heavy in the corner. Let me just jump onto Highlander's spot and stab him. And there's nothing that you can do about that. Not unless you're prepared for it, in which case you're looking up. But even still, look at what this allows the spy to do, or what the rest of his team is allowed to do. Not only does this spy have one of the best stabs for you to just die from, or for him to get the kill, right? It still allows the same situation of people bulldozing through. So with this, I want you guys to just promise me that when you're making this play, you're doing it for your team's sake. You're not doing it just for yourself, but you're allowing yourself the space. And if you're able to sit there, it's great. And you can play a little bit selfish, too, right? Like, let's just say this isn't even when the push is done. For example, like, they win the fight. Let's just say there's an Uber exchange, and you're forced to hide over here. Now, in a better scrim environment, in a better team environment, people know that you're not leaving concrete. They chimp connector and you die. But what if they don't? Why do they do that? Why is it such a threat? If you're able to sit over here and nobody calls you out, you get the exact same thing that we've talked about so far. And it's just really, really good for a post-fight. Because now, your team's in play. And your combo is walking in with you, you're able to get the same exact stuff that you were beforehand, just with a little bit of a different situation. And even still, if you don't want to go for any of these ballsy plays, there's always the head glitch, there's always this corner, and whenever your team is ready to push, your soldier is going to be whipping you, and from there you can play it a little bit slow, you can play it aggressive, you can walk into connector, you could fight connector, and also I forgot another thing, during the mid-fight, one of the best ways for a spy to stab you is you guys walking connector, and you being oblivious to the fact that he can now decloak over here and stab you, or he can go into the corners, any one corner, and stab you like that. As well as all the rest of the spots in concrete, so be aware. But with that being said, I've talked about everything I needed to talk about with your side of concrete going into connector. I just want to highlight some niche examples of what you can do. Now with the connector fight, one of the things that you're going to have to be aware of is if you're prepared for a fight at all. And I say you have to be aware for it, but you really got to be expecting it, right? Like, let's just say it's called that this heavy's playing on concrete. You see the bullet trails. You know he's over there. He's ready to push into you. He's not going to run away. He has a 450 buff. You have a 450 buff, and you're ready to fucking throw it down, right? What happens when you're playing aggressive and he starts walking into you in the corner, and then he has multiple people shooting at you, and then you just die? You needed to back up, of course. So you play this spot. But what if they just start walking into you, but notice, hey, I don't need to commit, so they back up? Well, I mean, you win the fight as long as they don't commit over to here, in which case now they're putting more pressure onto your combo, which forces you to choose either playing for that fight, shooting their combo, while also being aware of the sniper, or forcing your hand by you playing forward, pushing the same angle, or walking into connector, in which case they can then trick you into getting what they want anyway. The entire idea of heavy on concrete and the entire idea of a heavy v heavy is just to support your combo from a different angle, right? That's how it starts. That's how I want it to end. But sometimes you have to recognize the only person stopping you isn't a sniper, isn't a soldier, not just those people. But sometimes all of them can have an impact, but that's besides the point, right? Because at some point you gotta recognize, like, hey, my sniper's on the cliff looking at them, my soldier's on Highlander spot spamming rockets into there as well. And like I said before, you do not want to do any of this alone. The things that we talked about, sure, you could do alone, right? It's better that you do, because if people are congregating around you, more likely the chance that you're going to get seen. But if you're going for a normal stock standard push with no bells and whistles, the more people you have, the better the chance is for you to win that fight. With concrete, that is a very, very important concept for you guys to recognize. How much player ad do you have going into one space? What if it's even? What if it's just one heavy, one soldier versus another pair of heavy and soldiers? What happens then? We recognize that the soldier's playing in Highlander spot spamming rockets down, but they can also just play over here in the same spots that you're playing. So that's another person that you're going to have to recognize as a threat. If they walk into you and start spamming you out, now they're going to be sniper fodder, but they're not looking to get killed by the sniper, no. They're just looking to spam you out, and if you're playing passive, and you're unable to react to that, you're forced out, and then you're going to have to try and get some space back if they end up just bombing in, and you're going to have to salvage something, right? This is why it's important for you to recognize, like, hey, this person can do that to me. My soldier can do that to them. What happens and what can I do when they try doing that to me? Right? How do I want to respond to that? If I give them space, that soldier walking in is more than likely going to try and bomb. That's not my problem anymore. In fact, it's actually better if my soldier stays with me. Now me and my soldier can try to piece together a push onto their heavy, and more likely than not, we are going to win. And if my combo deals with that soldier, their gambit is lost. They lost both flank players. We are still alive, pushing into their concrete or me rotating back around to point to fight with my combo. All of this is making sense, right?
Yep.
Alright, cool. And also recognize when you guys have sniper ad, or when you have when you guys do not have sniper ad, like let's just say your sniper dies to theirs, it allows for less stuff to be done. And vice versa, if your sniper kills theirs, it allows for more stuff to be done. You can play more aggressive. You can play the spots where you want to play. And if they're backed up, that's not always a guarantee that you're going to win it, but at least for a short period of time, you can play a little bit of how you want, and then if you need to, you could back up, or you can stay committed. Either way, the choice is yours. You do what you can with the position. And we've talked about sniper, spy, soldier, all of those people you can play with. Let's talk about what you're going to be doing with your demo. Especially before a push happens, I want you to recognize where they're pushing from. If they're pushing main, you're still going to have to look at concrete. They can't just look at that for you, right? That didn't need to be explained, but for some people it might have, so I figured I'd just slip that in. What also needs to be made aware is the fact that this demo is going to be focusing on the combo fight. So your role is to prevent people on your side of the map from doing damage to your demo, or if they do, how to minimize it. What advantages can you create? What is their main goal? If it just looks like they're spamming your demo, if they're hard committed there, and you don't make a noise up until over here, they're going to have much less time to deal with you, and you're going to have a much, much better fight going in for you guys because you're pushing and they're holding. And your spawns are much better than theirs. Right? I talk about heavy v heavy, and it is a 50-50 trade, but it really feels like a 60-40 if you're able to win it and you're pushing. Like, even if you die, you do enough damage to that heavy, other people pick him off, you get mogged, whatever, you're still winning if you're pushing. But unless that heavy takes 7 seconds to die, in which case, I mean, no, it's fine. If you kill them early and then you die 7 seconds later, then it becomes even, right? But with that out of the way, what if their heavy dies? What does that allow for you? What does that allow for your team? You can now walk through connector a little bit easier, but you still gotta watch out for the soldier. But we talked about what you can do against this one singular player with other people. You don't have to play it alone. You should not be playing it alone. And with crates, dog bread, their side of concrete, you are playing with your demo. The only difference is now you're being a part of this push. You're getting arrow tanked, you're getting heals, you're getting support from people that you wouldn't otherwise get support from. That's what I mean by playing with your demo. And we'll talk about holds for a little bit too. When you recognize that demo's backing up, you're playing to back up as well. Maybe you have time to get a buff, throw a sandwich behind the rock, even going into this connector and just getting the pack for your free sandwich. All of these are micro decisions, yes, but they're great ones if you have the time for it. Sometimes if you don't, like let's just say your time getting buffed is cut off because you notice a sniper in main. You fuck off, you're playing a non-committal spot, and boom, now you're playing a little bit more disciplined. Maybe the sniper is playing main, right? So you don't need to worry about playing this passive. Maybe you could play a little bit more aggressive for a little bit. Maybe the sniper rotates over to house. Maybe he's going China. That's when you need to start recognizing that this might be a better spot. And of course, if he's China, he always has the chance of going cliff. So you rotate. And then you rotate. And then you rotate. But this is if you're playing passive, so you rotate. And if the sniper's on cliff, you have to go back. All of these things add up, and that's just for one player who's not guaranteed to always look at you. But think about this in the other perspective of the other heavy. They're slowly doing that same song and dance. Maybe they get this corner and lose because the sniper's watching them on cliff and they can't really do shit. Right? What if they're able to get in? That sniper's no longer a threat to them because they get what they want. What if they're stuck in this position? What do you do then? Simple. You force him to make a mistake. You play proactive. You recognize the situation. Maybe you see the minigun barrel. Maybe you see that they're playing by this corner. You don't need to play aggressive. You can mirror it. But sometimes the best thing for you to do is just recognize, hey, that heavy's caught. Call it out. Not doing anything, just calling out something is also one of the great plays that you could do. Because your influence is able to get people to recognize, like, hey, this heavy is losing it for their team if he doesn't get out of this spot. That's what you're allowing your team to do. You're giving calls, you're going in with them, and you're ultimately making this fight a whole lot better for you with proper play. Because there are so many outside factors going into every single one of these pushes that can prevent you from getting what you want, and I want you to be okay with that. Because for as many times as you're not going to be able to get with what you want, there are still chances for you to get exactly what your team needs. Much less what you want, what your team needs. And that should be a want in and of itself. Any questions with concrete? Because that is a majority of the discussion. This goes for pushes and holds. We'll talk more about forward holds later. But I just want everybody to be squared away with concrete. We are not going to return to this unless we're talking about specific holds, ideas, and other things of the like. Any questions?
I'm good.
Alright, cool. Another thing that you can do is push from main. Especially when your team is holding the point, or if they're pushing and a sniper is dead. And I want this to be the key. When the sniper is dead, you are allowed to go main. Because if you're sitting over here, holy shit, there's cliff, pocket, China, right side, rock, main, pixel. Pretty much every single place that's not concrete is a sniper sightline. This also means that any single person looking at you is going to be able to see you from connector, from point, from rock, from main, from valley, from pocket, from cliff, from China. Every single one of these players can look at you. So why is this a spot to consider for you to push? Not just when you're holding, but when you're pushing. Well, think about what we talked about with concrete. Think about what we talked about with crates. What if you're allowed to get into a different position because of the death of the sniper, but without the risks that would pose you walking into them directly? Like, let's just say, for example, they recognize that no heavy's playing concrete and they try playing aggressive. What does this spot do for you? Simple. It protects this area. They're forced to play back, they're forced to play passive, you get what you want, and you can get some more, or you can feint what you want when you really want to get the kill, and then walk their concrete. This gives you slightly more control over the concrete fight. Now nobody can push into you through connector at all. Because if anybody tries walking through, now you have a head glitch on an angle that can see deeper into connector than anywhere else. That's a lie. Never mind. But you get what I mean, right? Like, they're forced to peek into you. If you're playing the head glitch and they don't notice it, they're just dead, right? So they're forced to back up with 150 HP, 100 HP. They're just limp. They can't do much. You reduce their influence on the fight. Not forever, unless they die, but just enough time for them to... Just enough time for your team to make a push, knowing that they're going to have to make up the health. And it still allows you crates, it still allows you to play on rock a little bit, and objective time. This is a play, not a hold, a play. Any questions with main? Because quite literally, that's the only thing to really talk about push-wise. I will say holding main is a little bit different. It's much better for you to hold main when your team is just getting set up. Like we talked about beforehand. You're playing behind house when your team is getting ready for a push. You're just doing all of this stuff. But if your team is on the point, or if your team is getting ready for a push, you could peek a little bit over here, get information for your team, maybe with Fist of Steel. You could check the corner for spy, but that's really the only thing that you can do. But when you're playing on defense, right, you're playing your side of the map, one thing that you can do is rotate from concrete all the way over to your medic behind rock. You get a buff, and then boom, you notice something, right? If that sniper dies, this spot becomes the best spot in the game for you. If not, you're rotating back around with haste to get back to the head glitch. If you know that they are not going to push into you, but they have a sniper trained on your position, don't give him what he wants. Just go to another angle for you to get a buff at. This should be the angle where you get a buff at all the time, by the way. Unless they're all dead or they're not peeking, this works as well, but this is a little bit more secure. However, it is not secure in the fact that people can walk through connector in a more gracious time period than they would if you were getting a buff over here. But if that does happen when you're playing this, then something is going terribly wrong. You should not be asking for a buff. You need to be paying attention. And I'm putting it more on you than anyone else, because you are the one watching this alongside other people, but you are designated to play the spot for most of the game. But I want main to be seen as an extension of concrete, more so because you have the win conditions that we've talked about so far, but you also have the luxury of paying attention to concrete, and once that's dealt with, paying attention to combo. Right? Sometimes you could do a little bit of both. Sometimes you could peek main a little bit. They're playing behind rock, so then you go to the head glitch. They start walking in, you deal with them. Maybe they start walking in, or maybe you can just hide and pick and choose. Which isn't ideal, but at that point your team is also pushing with you. So they're shooting the same things as you. Or you're stopping them from getting any sort of damage onto your demo. If they're walking concrete. So it ends up working out much better for you than it is for them. If the sniper's dead. But like I said, main, I see this as more of an extension of concrete. Like I said, because of the wind conditions and because of the general game flow that you'd get from concrete to begin with. Because once you're done with concrete, it's point time. It's objective time. If there's nobody concrete, objective time first. If you see them walking in after, this can be an idea. You're running all the way back with haste to catch them out when they're walking into you. If not, if you have the time and they're not committed, you can peek like this. They have much more influence on where they're sitting. You have visuals on where they're standing, and it works out a whole lot better for you. Hold on. Now let's talk about rock for a little bit. Rock, I see more as a transition spot. More so because it's not a great idea for you to hold rock the entire time. And it's much better for you to kind of sit here for a little bit. And if things go your way, then you can walk over to your win conditions of dog bread and crates. Why you don't see me talking about playing this spot a lot. It falls in conflict with a lot of things that your team is going to try to do. Your sniper loves playing on rock. It is one of the best aggressive angles for him to sit on, especially if he wins SBS, in which case he's on top of the rock, getting a much better angle on their team. If you're sitting behind rock and your sniper's sitting behind rock, you eat the same splash damage, that sniper dies, and you're very low. That also goes for the rest of your combo. You eat damage, they're low, you're low. It's just great damage on their part. And even more so than that, it's just hard to play over here. Because there's so many things that you have that you're going to have to consider that are just out of your control. Like, let's just say the sniper's playing on main, for example. Now you're forced to play over here. You can't look at this side no more. Even though the entire point of playing rock is to defend the areas that you're supposed to be looking at. And you can adjust based off of where people are sitting to help you deal with the people walking in. Now, it's one thing if the sniper peeks from a different angle and the combo walks from a different angle, but you should not expect that. That's bad play. Every single combo is going to have their sniper mirror where they walk. So if you end up peeking that angle, boom, now you're dead. Against the smarter teams. I don't like playing rock. And while I love playing cliff, and there's definitely theory around it, let me talk about the disadvantages of playing cliff. The number one thing being how passive you are. You're playing much more passive on your side of concrete, but you also have much more diction as to what goes on there. You can see a fight happening and then adjust, and it have much more impact than you playing over here on cliff. Cliff is one of those angles where it seems great in the beginning, but you're only really harming your team by playing over here. And I hate saying that because I love playing this, but it's not always the best. You might think that this amount of coverage that you have is great for you. It's actually worse for you. Because if people know you're playing cliff, you want to know the best way... Oh, by the way, if you see they're heavy on cliff, you want to know what the best way to deal with that is? Ignoring him, walking straight through your side, walking straight through connector and going onto their side concrete. If not, going all the way behind onto their grass. So what it looks like, right? You're peeking a little bit. You see the heavy on cliff. You and your soldier get the call. Maybe there's a soldier over here, so you're revving, you're being diligent, but now you're just fighting their side of concrete. This heavy is doing absolutely nothing, by the way, on cliff. he's only, like, spamming you out and, like, breathing heavy. But I also think that it works. Especially against the worst teams that don't know how to push against a sniper. And, unfortunately, this spot is much better at dealing with worse teams than it is better teams. What do I mean by this? In theory, not in practice, because in practice this doesn't work because of things out of your control. You sit on your sniper looks at flank, you deal with the bombers and spy, and then to push, you go out on dog bread. Not so much jump revving into it as much as you are paying attention to where the fire is coming from. If you see fire straight, that's not always a guarantee that people are walking onto dog bread, but it is a good sign. And if you see an angle where where like bullets or stickies are flying this way, that's when you start walking in, and that's when you have the most impact on Cliff. And there's counterplay to it. You know, sniper on grass, stickies on the little rock. Just spy in the corner. Again, if you're not paying attention, then you need to. But one thing is certain. This spot is terrible to hold. How does it do with a push? As a push, if they're heavy and soldier are dead, it does not matter where you push. The only thing that you need to do is get in. And this allows for your combo to have the flexibility of going one side or the other. And if concrete is not being contested, assuming they haven't ran in because you're dead or you're not there, the fight looks something like this. Again, it's dog bread. And I just wanted to clarify this. Even though main and concrete are connected in my eyes, and they're separated, I don't see the same thing with Cliff and dog bread. They are physically connected, but dog bread is a win condition, and Cliff is just a place where you stand. It can be a hold, but it's really just another way for you to get onto dog bread. Granted, the same thing over here, but at least then you have some control as to what you can do, and it offers something different. Same thing said with Cliff, but you're giving yourself more restrictions. You're farther away. People have much more of a chance to see you, especially spy. And if you're caught on Cliff, there's not many angles for you to run from. If your sniper dies because you're busy dealing with the spy and the soldier at the exact same time, womp womp, sorry, you just lost the sniper. And people know where you are, so you have to eat. And then the heavy walks connector anyway because you're not contesting it. So, when I talk about Cliff, and the great parts of it, I want you to just recognize that I mean cliff, bridge, and house. These things are the things that are connected. Not cliff and dog bread, those are separate entities. I really mean cliff, bridge, and house. Mostly because of what we talked about beforehand. This is a great place for you to sit, especially if you want to catch out bad behavior. Or you want to get information, or you're just set up for a play. This is where a lot of the old heavies used to stand because it led into them playing Cliff. But I want you to just recognize, like, hey, if I'm playing over here, I have the ability to go on Cliff to help my flank a little bit, or to help my sniper a little bit. But I'm not going to sit here and just play like that, no. I have other things to worry about. So, with everything being said, are there any questions related to your side of the map? For pushes, holds, any one of those three, or any one of those two? Do you have any questions?
I'm good.
Alright, cool. There is one more thing I forgot to mention. There might be a couple more things I forgot to mention, but when you're playing in house, look at the windows. They give you intel. But you're not the one who's supposed to be doing that. It should be your spy, your demo. Spy on their side, maybe your side, and he's just cloaking in here because he doesn't want to be seen. And another thing too, playing on this part of the fence on rock. This allows you to go onto dog bread as well, like valley, like cliff. But you can also just walk the point and put the fight into your hands. It's a nice little what the fuck is he doing right there moment. It's a surprise play. You should not do this every single time. It's great when they have 10 seconds left on the clock. It's bad when they have 10 seconds left on the clock and your combo's playing the same exact way. Because again, where the combo pushes, the sniper should be assumedly right there. And you are putting yourself into a place of unfamiliarity. I'd rather you just play concrete passive, walking up, taking space when those 5 seconds are over, or being on the point, you getting and part of the Uber, and then just preventing anybody from getting space on the point. With all of that said, now let's talk about the forward holds. And there's only 2 forward holds that I want you to worry about. The one by window, and the one on their grass. Let's talk about the one on their window. And get the fuck out of here. My bad. But the entire point of this is you're hiding, and then when you feel like it, you can peek into their grass. You can drop down, play this wall. You can play wide. You can play deeper into them. But just keep in mind, if they're prepared for you, this wall is terrible. If they are prepared for you, you can peek a wider angle, make it much more of an even fight. But that's really about it. Like, you just do all of these things. If people walk in, your team's playing out, you baited. You're feeding. If your demo's backing up, you back up. Where this does lead to is, if your combo is ready to push, one thing that you can do is get multiple people and push grass together. And then you set up a sniper, and then you set up a forward hold, or you're just able to play over here for a little bit, and then back up because you got what you wanted. And then you can play concrete, get a buff in main, do everything that you need to do, just all of that sort of stuff. But I want you to be aware, if people call you out when you're playing this aggressive committal spot, you will be caught out if you're not aware that you are caught out. Right? And this is also something that you can do if you know that there's nobody flanked and their combo is pushing on the point. This is one of those things where you can call out for your team, I'm behind them on their concrete, can we push? Your spy gives the go-ahead, your soldier, and then you try piecing together something at the right time. On their side of the map, when they are walking directly into you, and you're playing on their side, they're not expecting you, it's a surprise, people are looking at you, it's causing some sort of delirium, it's causing people to be delirious. So, your soldier bombs in, spy stabbed, good stuff, right? Very, very, very hard to get to, especially if people are cognizant about playing concrete to begin with. Like, if their heavy's dead, oh man, this spot is awesome to be at. But A, you shouldn't always commit for that spot, and B, it's not always going to be a spot that you're able to get. So, we've talked about this a little bit, and I hope you guys recognize that this is much more of a selfish play than anything else that you can do in this map. Unironically, the less selfish way to play aggressively is to play by their grass with your combo holding main, getting ready to rotate into their grass, to fight main, or to rotate and fight on their cliff at a moment's notice. They are not always going to support you. We're not always going to have people around you. But you at least have the crates, you can head glitch, you can peek first, and you can juke them out. If they are planning on fighting you over by crates, you can go down here to get the jump on them. If they know you're over there, they don't have to commit. But if you know that they're committing into you over there, there's no place for them to run. It's an even fight unless they have more people than you. And the soldier can still try to spam you out if you're playing aggressive. So, hiding over here, it just comes with the job. Like, that's what you need to consider. Another thing that also needs to be considered, and this is something I can't show because I have shadows disabled, they can see you through the wall with shadows. Like, you won't be able to see it yourself. You can't see them hiding their shadow. But they're definitely going to be looking for yours. And another thing they're going to be looking for? The minigun barrel. Because this wall is thin, you could peek the minigun barrel through here. Could you actually show that, for example? I want to just check to see if that's a thing. Yeah. So if you're not paying attention, you can, like, accidentally give your positioning away. And then, in which case, oh, fuck, I messed up. So now you can go down here and get what you want anyway. If everybody walks into you, you call out for your team. They're pushing grass, you're fighting it. You're getting a buff, you're getting an Uber exchange. The fight's happening on your terms. Another thing that you can do is if you know that your team is playing in cliff on their side, when they're trying to fight their cliff on their side, you could try fighting this angle. Is it going to work always? No, but there's a chance that people walk through main anyway. If that happens, gauge which people are trying to come at you. It could be a scout, it could be an engineer, it could be their flank. If it's their flank, you can kite behind their concrete, but you have to be aware of the other people as well. The people that I'm really talking about, scout, engineer, soldier, and heavy. But the scout should also be on cliff, the soldier should be on cliff. The heavy, he's walking grass the entire time, with his soldier, maybe. But, I don't know, it's weird, right? If they're called cliff, you are not expected to rotate. The most that I can really say for you to rotate, kind of like right here. But if you're giving up this space, then you're just giving up the entire forward hold. Because all it takes is just a couple of people to push through a lane successfully. If your team is able to keep the forward hold, now you need to address the people behind you, and you're on their side of the map, and you can't run away easily, and they're not going to commit into you because they're smart. They're going to wait for you to leave. Or they're going to wait for you to do something, in which case that's the time for them to peek. And I say this is a much less selfish way to play, because at any point in time, you could play with your combo. You can help them out, you can do what you need to do, and just be a part of the team. And also, the worst part about sitting over here isn't anything related to grass. It's main, it's cliff. They know you're over there. When you're playing over here, you're not being shot at by main. If you're playing over here, they can not commit and shoot at you at the exact same time. And of course, if you need to back up, like let's just say people walk through a different angle and successfully, you leave, you pay attention to that angle, and you try getting some sort of hold. And of course, I forgot to mention this as well. If your sniper's playing aggressive, sometimes on crates you could play aggressively with them. Be mindful of base cliff sniper, people in main, just any sort of aggression to begin with. But with everything said, that's it for product. I did forget about the spot. Oh. Sorry, I forgot. I'll talk about this spot, and then once the video ends, I'll mention what I just thought about. But, you can also play window, theoretically, and jump onto their Japan, which is more of a silly play than anything else, but that's also an option for you if you wanted to. Again, don't do that all the time. In fact, do that once ever, if you wanted to try it out. But, yeah. If your team wants to get some sort of forward pressure, and they still have people alive, you walking main with your team is a really nice thing to do that. You going onto window, going on top of their Japan, could be a way for you to do that, without having to commit deeper into main, potentially leaving people in house able to deal with you. This is what we talked about before in the beginning. If people are uncalled in house, it can allow them to start dealing with you for free. At least when you're sitting on Japan, you can stop committing and then tell people that a heavy's in house. So, yeah, I really got nothing else to say. Any questions about anything else with the map?
I got nothing.
Alright, sweet. With that being said, yeah, that's the review. So, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for coming in. Kind of sad that more people didn't show up, but it's also Friday. It's a late night. People are partying, so I don't give a fuck. All right,
Yeah,
sweet.
thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.